I want to pay my respects and offer my deepest sympathies to the two families who have lost a loved one today to COVID-19. This is a poignant reminder that this virus is still very much with us, and we still must do all we can to limit the spread of COVID-19. I know many families have welcomed the news that we can now meet up outdoors. This isn't a comfort for everyone. I know for my family, I would love to take my 3 small children to see their nanny indoors, but that isn't safe and that isn't the rules. And we all, no matter who we are, a government minister, special advisor, father, mother, grandfather or grandmother, we must stick to the rules to keep each other safe. But I know communities are restless and you want answers. That is why it is vitally important that as your executive, you have clear communication from us. As Minister for Infrastructure, I have worked across my department to put solutions in place that will help citizens and communities through this challenging time. Just yesterday, I announced the extension of licences and the restart of some DVA services, including IVA testing. These actions will help road users and support the flow of our essential goods and our critical supply chains. Members of the public will be aware that I am also responsible for public transport and have, as we moved into step 1, moved to encourage passengers to use face coverings when travelling. This is a precautionary measure, but not a replacement for social distancing. That is why my department has provided extra fleet for TransLink to enable social distancing for those taking essential journeys. Together, we are working through challenges to keep workers and the general public safe, working always to ensure that doctors, nurses, and other key workers can get to and from work safely. But I must be honest with the public. There is still a lot to do and a long road ahead. I continue to work closely across these islands with my counterparts to find solutions and a way forward. In doing that, I remain focused on the future, building a new future. While the executive has been rightly focused on pausing the pain for business, it's now time to also plan for change. That's why I have announced an array of active travel initiatives across the north. Pilots have already hit the ground running in Belfast and will soon be rolled out in Newry and Derry. This will include pop-up cycle lanes, pedestrianisation and quiet streets that make our places safer, greener and cleaner, promoting healthier, happier communities open for business and investment. Infrastructure is the key that unlocks our opportunities. So as we look to move through COVID into the future, we need to build a pathway to recovery that is ambitious, but also that we invest in. That means seizing our chance for change. And I know my executive colleagues will want to support me in kickstarting our economic recovery by investing in infrastructure like so many other governments have across the globe. The future may be full of uncertainties with the public health challenge of COVID and the economic crisis looming from the British government's Brexit. Your executive not only has the opportunity for change, we have a duty and an obligation and an economic imperative to deliver it. As your Minister for Infrastructure, I'm up for the challenge. It's time for the people of this island to demand the delivery they deserve.
Good afternoon, Minister. You said quite pointedly there that no one is above the law. Obviously, the Dominic Cummings story has dominated the headlines. Tomorrow, the executive will discuss the potential further relaxation of measures. Do you feel that it's safe to do so? Would you like to see that happen? And how much are you concerned that, given all that's happened around the Dominic Cummings affair, that the public might take matters into their own hands and start to waive the regulations?
Well, Tracy, I believe that as a government, your job is to keep people safe and to keep people with you. And to do that, they must have confidence and trust in the public health advice. I think what Dominic Cummings has done has rightly caused great anger, because while the rest of us are expected to follow the rules, if you're in the elite in number 10, it's okay to follow your instincts. And I think for that reason, Dominic Cummings should go. On the issue of relaxations here, you will know that we're meeting as an executive tomorrow. It is a 3-week review period, and of course, we will continue to be led by the medical and the scientific advice. I know that it is difficult for families, very difficult that they can't visit each other in their homes. We understand that as an executive, but our priority is to keep people safe, and so we will continue to be led by the medical and the scientific advice.
Good afternoon, Minister. I'm Mark Devonport, BBC Northern Ireland. You mentioned in terms of trying to change Northern Ireland, some of the initiatives you've embarked on, pedestrianisation, pop-up cycle lanes. Do you think any of the initiatives you're considering now have the potential to change Northern Ireland for the better permanently? And might that involve potentially dropping some of the big ticket schemes that your department's been involved in, things like Yorkgate, the big road project? Should we be rethinking those? And just one other point in relation to Brexit, there have been a couple of interventions today. We have Michel Barnier offering the UK government the possibility of a 2-year extension. We've had the UK saying that it is most definitely not going to ask for an extension. Do you think the Stormont executive should be taking sides in relation to getting an extension from Brexit, and is that politically feasible?
Well, Mark, as you have said, I've rolled out a number of pilots when it comes to safe active travel around the pedestrianisation of streets, broadening of pavements, because social distancing will be with us for a very long time. So it is a public health necessity. I will continue to do that. We're trying to get pilots quickly on the ground. If we can demonstrate that that works, then we will move to make them permanent features. And I think there's an obligation now on us as an executive to be looking at everything in a new way. That doesn't mean relinquishing on our commitments around key capital projects, but it's about looking at it through a fresh pair of eyes, because this is about the green recovery, and it's also about tackling the other global crisis facing us all, which is the climate emergency. On the issue of Brexit, UK exit is a short 7 months away. As Minister, I have asked the British Government for a clear and detailed plan for delivery of implementation of the protocol. There has been nothing. I have asked the British Government for clear commitments around the amount of finance that will be made available for the implementation of the protocol. Nothing. And I think that when you look at the impact of COVID on business, communities and families, the last thing that anyone needs is the cliff edge of a Brexit that no one has prepared for. So I think that anyone who is approaching this with common sense has to come to the conclusion that we need to be requesting an extension. That's what they have done in Scotland. That is what they have done in Wales. And I believe that's what we must do as an executive. I've raised this issue with my executive colleagues, and I remain firmly of the view that in the interests of everyone in Northern Ireland, we should be asking the British Government for an extension.
Minister David Young from PA. The Assembly yesterday heard of the dire financial position a lot of departments are in currently, given the pressures from the coronavirus emergency. From yourself in regard to the situation at Northern Ireland Water, given that and given the pressures that the executive faces financially in the months and years to come, is it tenable for the executive to continue the position of not charging for water?
I think, David, that the situation we find ourselves in, it's about the protection of critical public services. As you say, Northern Ireland Water has been hit by the COVID crisis. Businesses have closed. So the priority has to be the protection of critical public services. That's why I've been engaging with executive colleagues on ensuring that we can get that critical support to Northern Ireland Water, because it does provide us with clean drinking water. It does ensure the safe treatment of our wastewater. And it's why I've also been making the case around the importance of a publicly owned public transport network, which is a key part of the executive's own roadmap to recovery.
Good afternoon, Minister. Amanda Ferguson from Reuters. I was just wondering, you spoke there about the importance of planning. Could you tell me a bit about the executive's planning for a second wave peak of COVID-19? And a second simple question is, how is contact tracing going?
Yeah, so we are always conscious and aware of the need to be planning for a second wave. That's why it's so important that people continue to follow the advice around engaging only in essential travel, around hand washing. As I've said, we are meeting again as an executive tomorrow. We will be expecting the Health Minister, as he does, to be bringing forward the latest modelling and the understanding from the Chief Scientific Advisor and the Chief Medical Officer as well, to give us the fullest understanding of that. Second question? Contact tracing. Yes, so there is a pilot which is being run out, and I think it's very important that we have community testing and that we also have a very robust contact tracing. That is what is required to contain this virus. We need to understand where it is and we need to control it. So everything that must be done should be done in terms of maximising our efforts on contact tracing.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.